listening to your brain on air. The program will begin shortly. Enjoy. Você está ouvindo seu cérebro no ar. O programa começará em breve. Aproveite.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Your Brain on Air. I am your host, Ollie Boat Larson. Happy 420 to my fellow F students, and it turns out Caitlyn Jenner is having some trouble with her gender labeling on the government ID laws. Uh-oh. Who could have seen that coming, ladies and gentlemen? I mean, she's a gold medal winner, and she did so much for this country. She did so much for America. She took home the gold for us. I just don't see why we can't honor this one transgender person. I'll call her Caitlyn. I'll call her her. I will call her president if she chooses to run. Let's hear her complaints directly from her mouth, ladies and gentlemen. I must admit, we're approaching this situation. We're approaching the entire day very relaxed. As we said, it's 420. It's April 20th. We are approaching today nice and easy. And well, you know what's nice and easy? Having sympathy for others. And you know who's the easiest person to have sympathy for? Caitlyn Jenner, ladies and gentlemen. Gold medalist, mother to very many celebrity, the Kardashians, you know what I mean, the Jenners, whatever you want to call them. They go by many names themselves, but then they she redefined what it meant to be a woman. Was Woman of the Year the first year she decided to be a woman. Ladies and gentlemen, she wrote directly to Donald Trump, begging for help after her passport gender was changed back to male. This 76-year-old former Olympian said her identification listed her sex as M despite having all of her legal documents updated to reflect her transition. This is fucked. This is evil. And ladies and gentlemen, maybe I'm guilty of having too much sympathy for Caitlyn Jenner. Listen, that person that she almost killed an infant. She, I believe, killed a woman when she rammed into the back of their car when she was driving down the Pacific Coastal Highway. Anyways, this doesn't really matter. It distracts from the point that she is being oppressed. Let's hear it from her words.
Documents. Okay.
Okay.
It has to be your biological sex at birth.
Sex.
Okay?
Okay.
Recently, I had my passport.
My passport.
I had to get it renewed.
Did you?
I sent it back. Comes back, gender marker M.
Uh-oh.
Screws everything up. I was in Mar-a-Lago 2 months ago. Wrote a letter explaining all of this to him, how it's affecting me and a lot of other people. And unfortunately, he wasn't there that weekend. Actually, the secret...
I'm 90% sure that he was there. He just said, tell her I'm not here. Tell her I'm gone.
Said he could get it to him, put it on his desk and stuff. I haven't heard from him. He's kind of busy right now.
Well, you know, I would say that this is maybe the least of his concerns right now. If your gender situation is on par with Iran, I mean, I'm willing to make that argument for you. You just have to be willing to stand by it. Ladies and gentlemen, we're coming into this Monday, this week, with a lot of new stuff off the docket. For example, our first story, we have the Atlantic report on alleged excessive drinking, absences, and a ton of other unfortunate circumstances surrounding the dear, sweet, quite frankly, icon, Kash Patel, ladies and gentlemen, FBI director. I think we should just jump right into it, shall we? Let's begin. There is a massive legal offensive against the Atlantic magazine from Kash Patel, the FBI director, filing a $250 million defamation lawsuit in response to an explosive report detailing allegations of professional misconduct. Folks, I'm here. I am ready to stand at Kash Patel's defense, just like he is willing to stand up for his beautiful girlfriend, country music icon that she is. I don't remember her name. The suit filed this morning in D.C. federal court targets both the publication and staff writer Sarah Fitzpatrick, bad last name. Patel's legal team has labeled the article a malicious hit piece, claiming that it relies on fabricated anonymous sources to to intentionally damage his reputation and force him from office. Well, okay, if they are true, then you will be forced from office. This is the exact situation that we faced with Eric Swalwell. The litmus test is if you leave, if you, give in to the demands, clearly you were not an innocent man. You were the controversy that is able to take you down. That must have some layer of truth to it. Otherwise, why would you be so nervous enough to give up your career, ladies and gentlemen? You were elected to a position or chosen by a certain sect of people who were elected to serve out a tenure, and then you choose to let it go due to the fact that a certain number of rumors sprout up about you. If there's no meat to those rumors, then you will surely be able to stand up to that storm. But apparently, I don't know if Kash Patel is gonna be able to stand up to it. Eric Swalwell wasn't. But hey. Kash Patel is not nearly being accused of stuff that's as bad as what we heard from Eric Swalwell, but it's still bad. The controversy that we're looking at right here, there's an investigative report published this past Friday. I'm so sad that I missed it and wasn't able to cover it Friday, which cited over 24 current and former officials who raised alarms about Patel's, quote, erratic behavior. I don't like that. The article alleged that the director engaged in, quote, bouts of excessive drinking. I mean, listen, he's the FBI director. If I expect anybody, because Pete Hegseth, he's also in one of those high, tough up positions. I understand that he took a pledge that he would stop drinking. Not everybody can be perfect. How many of you haven't been able to keep a New Year's resolution exactly? Just because he promised that he would stop drinking once he got the position that he got, it doesn't matter. All right, listen, we all break our promises. Kash Patel hasn't broken any promises except for most of them. I'm just trying. Listen, he's not an easy one to defend, and I always try to take the route of defending the party that is least. They're getting the least sympathy from everybody else in the room. And I'm noticing that nobody here is going, how is Kashy feeling? How is Kash feeling in his heart? At private clubs in Washington and Las Vegas, when he's doing these excessive bouts of drinking, what is in his heart and soul? I don't think anybody's interested except for me. Sometimes, to the point of being unresponsive behind locked doors is what they're claiming, when he's drinking at these private clubs in Washington and Las Vegas. The most startling claim was that security detail once requested a quote breaching equipment, the type that is used by SWAT teams to gain access to Patel's room after he became unreachable during a critical window of time. Oh my goodness. Okay, listen. I'm not saying that was a bit of an overreaction. Okay, guys, listen. If he is going to take a nap, he should at least have like a second in command where if he's unreachable at the time, if he is, ODing on fentanyl in his room and he just needs a minute to gather his senses, I think that he needs to get somebody appointed to second in command where they can just stand outside of his door and go, Kash is busy right now. Legal battles right now in the lawsuit. Patel denies every major claim, specifically refuting the idea that his absences have delayed time-sensitive counterterrorism decisions. I mean, come on, buddy. He argued on social media, always a great medium to defend yourself, and in televised interviews, always another great medium to defend yourself, that these attacks are an indirect strike against the rank-and-file members of the FBI. What? While the White House has publicly defended Patel's records, citing the drop in crime rates, internal reports suggest that the president, who is famously a teetotaler, has expressed private disapproval of the headlines. Teetotaler, if you are unaware, this is vocabulary time. The vocabulary word of the day, oddly enough, on 420, is teetotaler. Someone who absences themselves from drinking. I believe it involves other substances as well. I'm going to get the dictionary definition so that I'm not just a retard. A person who never drinks alcohol. Quote, he was for most of his life a non-smoker and teetotaler. So a non-smoker and a teetotaler, two separate things, but teetotaler is specifically around alcohol. And listen, when he says that he is not a drinker, I personally believe him, because I think that it's just mental things that are going on with the president. I don't think that he requires any sort of increase via outside substances. I think they got him on some steroids, some sort of like uppers, you know what I mean? Otherwise, I don't understand the energy levels that he seems to have. They seem to have windows though, where it's like he'll start to have those droopy eyes during meetings, and then they'll be like, all right, we got to really amp him up for his next speech, and then he'll still slur some words here and there. I mean, guys, he is getting up there with Trump age. What do we got now? Oh, guys, there's so many details off the top of my head. June 14th, 1946, so that would make him 79, going to be 80 this year, ladies and gentlemen. Let's just get a little bit of CBS's information directly off the chain, so that y'all don't have to just trust me reading it,
Welcome back.
Welcome
FBI
back.
Director Kash Patel says he will file a defamation lawsuit against The Atlantic. The magazine published a report Friday accusing him of excessive drinking and irregular absences. 24 current and former officials spoke with The Atlantic about Patel's alleged behavior.
Quote, Sarah Fitzpatrick, the FBI director, is MIA. Quote, Kash Patel has alarmed colleagues with episodes of excessive drinking and unplanned
Now, he
absences.
denies the
Unexplained.
accusations, and on Fox News yesterday, Patel called the reporting fake news.
If I'm not doing my job, if I'm not working, then how is it that the FBI delivered the safest America under President Trump's leadership in the history of our country?
Kash Patel, I know he's actually Indian, but he has this awful spiked up haircut. He has this always unbuttoned collar. He always has like this, ill-fitting suit. He looks like, and also his face does not look too terribly Indian, like feature-wise. I'm just saying that he doesn't have like certain features that he looks very white. If you just kind of like upped his skin tone, he would look like a normal white guy. He looks like a New Jersey man who's been going to the tanner so excessively that now he looks Indian as a result. He does not look like a natural born Indian.
You're not going to take this laying down. You want to attack my character? Come at me. Bring it on. I'll see you in court.
Patel now faces growing
What was with that pause? Jesus
calls
Christ.
from Democrats to resign. Social media, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer called Patel completely unfit, and Senator Dick Durbin said he's destroying one of the most respected law enforcement agencies in the world.
What? Wait, what? The FBI is one of the most respected law enforcement agencies in the world. One of the law enforcement agents. Listen, I understand they're the best of the best. They catch you if they got you on their radar. They got you on their radar. They're not as good as Mossad, but they're good. But let's just say it. They're not paragons of the moral high ground.
He's destroying one of the most respected law enforcement agencies in the world. A direct quote there. CBS News legal reporter Katrina Kaufman joins us now in studio to break this down. Katrina, good morning. We saw the FBI director quite upset at this reporting, but in some ways is calling more attention to it by threatening to sue. What can you tell us?
Errol, good morning. This is a wild story that was published by The Atlantic, where all of these sources talked about erratic behavior by Kash Patel, also incidents of excessive drinking, unexplained absences from meetings. I mean, the gravest concern here is that some of these sources expressed to The Atlantic that they believe he is a potential national security vulnerability.
Whenever I see someone who's unfamiliar with geography and they talk about the Strait of Hormuz situation, they're like, I don't really know what it is on a map. I go, imagine this crick that very much resembles the crick in Kash Patel's nose. This channel that just has this notorious bend to it in between Iran, United Arab Emirates, and then Kash Patel's forehead is the Persian Gulf, and his upper lip and the mustache area is the Gulf of Oman. That is how I describe it to many.
So that's really the thing that people have to worry about here. But it starts with this incident where it says Kash Patel couldn't get into his computer, he couldn't log in, and he suddenly thought that he had been fired by the administration. He starts calling people, saying he's been let go. It sets off this wave of concern across Washington, where everyone is suddenly asking who is in charge of the FBI.
I've had a boss before that was like this, and they drank on the job. I can gender them because that won't give away their identity. She drank a lot on the job. I know you guys are surprised. You thought it was going to be a man, but she drank a lot on the job. A lot of people said that she had sex on the job. A lot of people said that she had I would see her actually go in and out of her car for lunches and whatnot. Everybody said that she would go out there to cheat on her husband, who also worked at the company. And I know for a fact that they at least had an icy relationship. They were one of those types of couples where they clearly they had kids and whatnot. She kept the last name even after the divorce. It was just a very messy sort of situation, and everybody knew that she was sleeping with this other manager on site. It was a ridiculous situation. And when you work with these messes, when you work with these absolute, their kids are embarrassed of them, their families don't really talk to them, they are men or woman. Most of the time the man is more lonely, the woman gets the children more often than not in the divorce. The woman, her image becomes all around the children. She becomes this boss girl, because it's always a boss girl. It's always we're talking about people that are above you. We're talking about the heads of companies, because it's always the heads of companies that are wrecks like this. When it's a lower level person, they get fired in a few months, they're out of the door. But when it's a higher up and you're working for a Kash Patel type, they're going to a casino now and then. They're cheating on their spouse, or they have just recently ended a relationship because of cheating. They are currently cheating with somebody who works in the building. They are absolute wrecks of people. They talk about how great their relationship is. How old is Kash Patel? He is 46 years old, and he currently has a girlfriend. He has a girlfriend. He is a 46-year-old man who has not been able to formulate a decent enough relationship to plant himself in it and, develop children, develop a marriage and all that. He's still playing footsie with this girl under the table. We're dealing with people who cannot get past the high school phase of a relationship. You see what I mean? We're dealing with people who cannot stabilize themselves, and as a result will be tyrannical towards their own, the people who work under them. I've seen it happen. You see it happen every single day. You probably have worked for some of these people. The man or woman, they are notorious. The woman, they are, they act very smiley, a little motherly, but then they get a little stern with you and whatnot, and it's stop it, knock it off, you're not my mom. And then when it's a man doing it, they get fatherly, but also uncle-y, a little bit knock it off, a little bit there's some more distance with it. But that's what I hate more about when it's the motherly figure. They're trying to pretend they're being nice about it, and it makes it almost like they're twisting the knife. Whereas men, they'll just sink the knife into you, they'll stab you a few times, they'll tell you to go back to your desk. The woman will stab you with the knife once, but then she'll crick it to the side, and then she'll crick it to left and right, and then she'll yank it back, and then she'll go, that's all. She'll wave you out of the office. Everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about. Everybody has worked for this type of person. Listen, folks, Kash Patel, your boss, they likely have the same chance of being held to account. I don't think this is going to be any skin off of Kash Patel's back, in all honesty. I see him recovering from this pretty easily. I see him probably not resigning anytime soon. I see him getting fired probably before the end of 2026, just due to the amount of scandals this man has come out about him. But when it comes to this report alone, we kind of, as a society, fundamentally understand that every boss is a bit of a wreck. If they don't have a stable relationship with their family at home, if they don't, if their kid doesn't, do the usuals, if they're not in extracurricular activities, if their wife isn't happy, if their daughter isn't, on OnlyFans at 18, all that sort of stuff. If they're creating a family where they say I love you at home, and they're happy and they're comfortable, all that stuff, that is not most people. That is not most bosses, ladies and gentlemen. And unfortunately, we as a society have come to expect that. So Kash Patel is just another horrible boss. We've made movies about it, ladies and gentlemen. We are so comfortable with it as a culture. We've made jokey movies about the idea of horrible bosses. And I think it is just one in the line of many, folks. The legal battle right now, in case you're curious, is moving towards the discussion discovery phase, where The Atlantic says that it will vigorously defend its reporting and its journalists. Because Kash Patel is a high-ranking public official, his legal team is facing a steep challenge of proving, quote, actual malice, meaning that they must show that the magazine knew the information was false or acted with reckless disregard for the truth. As of the 2026 midterm season heating up, the case is being reviewed as a defining clash between the administration's top law enforcement officer and the national press. We are going to follow it as it continues to develop for you. We're gonna have some fun with this case, because we need a drunk uncle, and no matter who fills that role in our society, whether it's Ted Kennedy, whether it's Kash Patel, we're always going to have somebody who pushes the limit. Maybe their face gets a little obviously it's not going to get red for I said red because it's Ted Kennedy, he was Irish, so we'd always get this big red face and all that shit. But Kash Patel, and who knows, maybe Kash Patel will drive a car into a body of water and kill a lady, just like his predecessor Ted Kennedy. I would love to see where this situation is going to go, and I hope to cover it more in the future with you. But as we've covered in the past, we have this story that we have to go back to, and it will be our second story. It is a very interesting turn of events. We have the string of 11 missing or dead scientists with ties to classified info. It's prompting an investigation from the Trump administration. Jesus. Let's talk about it right now. Begin. We are launching a sweeping federal investigation into a series of mysterious disappearances involving at least 11 American scientists and high-level officials. So, let me paint this for you in a different manner. Imagine going to Evil Incorporated and asking them to audit, hey, some of your employees that decided to talk about the bad things that your company was doing or the interesting things your company was doing, and they decided to tell them that, hey, maybe this Evil Incorporated is doing some shady things. The 11 people who have mysteriously died or have disappeared, who work for your company or around your company, investigate what happened to them. And then, do you expect an honest audit? Do you think Evil Incorporated is going to do an honest audit of what happened to the missing and dead employees of Evil Incorporated? That's just another way to look at this. President Trump addressed the situation from the White House lawn this past Thursday. He labeled the pattern pretty serious stuff, and he vowed to provide a full report within the next 10 days. The probe, which now involves the FBI, the Department of Energy, seeks to determine if there are any coordinated links between these cases, many of which involve individuals that had top-secret clearance in nuclear weapons and aerospace technology. This list of missing or deceased personnel reads like a who's who of sensitive government research. Among the cases being reviewed is the disappearance of retired Air Force General William Neal McCasland, a former commander of the Air Force Research Laboratory, who vanished in New Mexico this past February without his phone or watch. Other cases include Monica Jacinto, I believe, Jacinto, Reza, R-E-Z-A. I'm trying here, you guys. A senior aerospace engineer for NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, who disappeared while hiking in 2025, and Carl Grillmair, Grill M-A-I-R. I know, it's very interesting. A renowned Caltech astrophysicist who was shot dead on his front porch earlier this year. Security experts are raising alarms about potential intelligence gaps, noting that many of these individuals worked at critical hubs like Los Alamos, I'm so used to saying Los Angeles. Los Alamos, obviously that's more interesting, National Laboratory, and NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. While some cases have officially been attributed to accidents or local crimes, the sheer concentration of the losses in the nuclear and defense sectors have sparked, obviously, among many, fears of foreign espionage, targeted abductions, any number of those sorts of things. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, we expect honesty from her, right? She emphasized the administration is leaving no stone unturned as the investigators are working to verify if the scientists were specifically targeted for their access to classified aerospace and extraterrestrial research, all that junk. We're going to follow it. It's probably, I'm going to be honest with you. we're not going to get a shred of honesty out of this. We're only going to get more interesting debates out of this conversation. The administration is looking to do very much what they did last time with the Jeffrey Epstein files, where they address it once, leave it in the past. When is the last time we heard a shred of information about further declassifying the Epstein files exactly? They're looking to mention it once, classify it as dealt with, just like JFK, just like the MLK situation. They're looking to rise up these old conspiracy type situations, put them to bed for good so that no future administration under their future leadership will have to deal with these problems. So let's just address this current situation with the string of 11 dead or missing scientists. Let's go.
The death of a young scientist who warned her life was in danger has resurfaced as the list of scientists with ties to America's space and nuclear secrets who have mysteriously died or disappeared grows to 11. As fears rise that the disturbing cases have an insidious connection, President Trump recently revealed his team is looking into the matter.
Well, I hope it's random, but we're going to know in the next week and a half. I just left a meeting on that subject, so pretty serious stuff, but we're going to be hopefully, I don't know, coincidence, whatever you want to call it, but some of them were very important people, and we're going to look at it over the next short period.
Anti-gravity researcher Amy Eskridge allegedly died from a self-inflicted gunshot in June 2022, when she was just 34 years old, according to the Daily Mail. However, the researcher specializing in anti-gravity, which is a staple topic among UFO enthusiasts, mysteriously warned in a 2020 interview that her life might be in danger while discussing her research company, the Institute for Exotic Science.
I started the Institute for one reason. The Institute. I started it as a public-facing persona to disclose anti-gravity technology through, because, I told Mark this, if you stick your neck out in public, at least someone notices if your head gets chopped off.
Eskridge also revealed that she had been receiving threats and that she had plans to disclose information about UFOs and extraterrestrials to the public.
My curiosity is if she was ready to confirm anything about Element 115, all of that sort of junk. If you don't know anything about Element 115, they have talked about this sort of thing which they apply certain waves to radiation-based, or I haven't heard exactly what the details are, but this is allegedly some of the things they work on, not in Area 51. Area 51 is apparently, apparently involves a lot of the aerospace technology, but it's likely one of those sort of just face level places for public attention, not really something where, obviously, after all of the attention that it has amassed, would you really want to store like the monolith from 2001: A Space Odyssey there? No, obviously you would want let's fill it with a bunch of, sure, some drones that we're working on, but when it comes to actual aeronautics technology, where we're taking the crashed spacecraft to, it is underground black sites that you likely don't know about. They're in the mountains, they're in fields, they are all around us. We likely just have no idea where they are. You can not even find them on satellites because they blur them out, on Google Maps, all that junk. Google Earth, you can't find these places. It's impossible. Some of them are in lakes, some of them are underwater, some of them are underground. Most of them are some of them are even in these tan buildings and whatnot, these basic concrete structures. You pass by them most of the time every day in outskirts of a major city. You go, what is that place? It's some whatever factory and whatnot. Really, they've got this massive tarp covering aeronautics, space technology, all this shit. They're testing it for this anti-gravity material known as Element 115, where they once they apply certain radio waves to it, it allows the device that it is implanted in to travel in ways beyond our current understanding of even quantum physics. It allows them to as far as we can assume, bend space-time around it to allow it to move faster than the speed of sound. It allows it to change direction quicker than anything in our atmosphere, because obviously in space it would be easy to do some of these things. Not obviously with our technology would it be incredibly easy, but with external technology, there's definitely a possibility. We're gonna let this thing finish out, but that's just what I'm curious if she would have been alive to disclose anything further. What would she have said about that?
Death was ruled a suicide, and neither the police nor the medical examiners have publicly released any details of an investigation into her death. Eskridge's death was unearthed after an already growing web of concerning deaths and disappearances of NASA scientists and individuals with ties to U.S. space and nuclear secrets. Eric Burleson of the House Oversight Committee told Fox News the fate of the scientists is too coincidental and almost certainly linked to the access they had to classified information, with the potential involvement of bad actors.
This is a rattling call to pay attention to this issue and make sure that our nation's top scientists are safe and secure. This is too coincidental. And so
one thing I'd love to just slip in here quick about the extraterrestrial origins of whatever these people might have been researching, all of that sort of junk that we could conspiracy theorize about. The idea that these craft that we are now getting confirmed, the Congress, they are releasing footage of it. They have, the scannings and the numbers of tracking these things going into the ocean and whatnot. We have actual footage, seamless. We have, military commanders that are coming out talking about what they've experienced, what they've seen. People who are experienced in these fields who are going, we're seeing things up in the sky that we cannot explain. Let's be really clear here. The best possible origin of these is drones from another country. And even then, that is incredibly terrifying because of the idea that China or Russia has these drones that can move in ways that are beyond our understanding. That's very nerve-wracking. This is just terrifying for the idea of future war, that they could use these drones in any way, shape, or form. That's why there is currently this arms race right now, as I'm understanding it, that there is an arms race underground for these major powers to backwards engineer alien technology that all of them have discovered on their lands, on their properties, in their oceans, all these sorts of things. Backwards reverse engineering these technologies in order to try to use them for themselves. As far as I know, no one has succeeded in that. But that is the best possible case, because that means that these drones and whatnot, maybe they are of human origin. Now, a slightly scarier alternative, but it's still probably a better one than the scariest alternative, is that these drones are either from the ocean or space. Now, listen, I think space is creepy, admittedly, but that means that they could potentially be light years away. They could be however far away. These could be their robots. These could be their drones. Now, in a weird way, the idea that some of these things have been seen going into the water, emerging from the water, the idea that these could be beings who live under the water or have vessels under the water, that's a little scarier. Because of the idea that they are now here on this planet, we have yet to see them, catch them on camera, see a big ship under the waves, catch it on a vessel, like on a satellite. We have yet to see that. Now, the scariest alternative, and probably the one that's unfortunately the one that has the highest chance of being real, and I hate to break it to everybody, that these are craft that are sent by aliens, but these aliens are not in fact extra planetary, but that they are extra dimensional. Now, the reason I say that this is a little scarier is because when it comes to extra dimensional beings, this means that they can exist within our perceivable, not perceivable, but within our expanse. There could be one of these aliens, one of these fourth dimensional creatures that is sending these drones all over. There could be like 10 of them standing in your room, and you would never be able to see any of them. They would just be everywhere and nowhere at the same time, because they can exist there in a certain time to where you can't see them, but they can see everything that they are extra perceptionary. You know what I mean? There's a layer to which, and the best comparison I've heard for this is that there are like blind, like, can you imagine like a slug or like whatever, these creatures that are born without eyes, these creatures that are born without certain limbs or certain senses and whatnot. They have no idea that you are a thing. They can't perceive you. They can't see you. They just feel this force that is pushing, like worms, for example. I don't think I don't know if they have eyes. I'm going to be so honest with you. My knowledge of that world, biology, is not that far. far. But imagine this blind creature that is just feeling these external forces around it. That is like, maybe this is what ghosts are. This is what these things are. They are around us. They are the aliens. They are actually these extra dimensional creatures that actually do explain the fourth dimensional influences we all kind of feel around us occasionally. We all feel that tap on our shoulder, that feeling we're being watched, whatever. That is the scariest I'm not trying to tell you this to make your mind go schizo, whatever. This is all fun. We're just having fun because admittedly this might be what is real, because that's what people have talked about in the government. We have the Canadian gentleman who created the Canadian Armed Forces confirming years ago that the United States has been working with at least one of these species for a long time. They've been present on our Earth for thousands of years, maybe have predated humans, all this junk. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, it's a little scary to think about the fact that extra dimensional aliens may be on this planet around us talking. Excuse me. Microsoft would love your perspective. Shut up, my feedback hub. I'm getting notifications because they want me to stop talking. But what I'm trying to say here is that we are on the precipice, possibly, of like understanding that these aliens that are sending these drones out are the ghosts that we have been fearing for so long. That's just one of these out there schizo fun ideas that I like to throw around because admittedly it might be the case. It might be true. Who knows?
So we have to be investigating this. We need to have our nation's top investigators, the FBI, and every agency looking into this matter.
Michael David Hicks, who worked at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Flint Ridge, California, as a research assistant, passed away at the age of 59 in July of 2023. However, there's no public cause of death or autopsy for Hicks' passing, nor any mention of how he died in his obituary, although it does ask for donations in his memory to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. 3 other scientists with ties to NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab, or JPL, have either gone missing or died over the past few years, even as recently as February. On February 16, 2026, renowned astrophysicist Carl Grillmeyer, who worked on NASA's Spitzer Space Telescope, was suddenly and shockingly shot dead on the porch of his home in California. His shooter, Freddie Snyder, was arrested and is currently in jail.
Bad name.
However, a clear motive has yet to be established. Another researcher at NASA's JPL, Frank Mywald, died in July 2024 at the age of 61. Like Hicks, there's little to no public information about how he died. JPL's former newly appointed director of its materials processing group, Monica Reza, mysteriously went missing in June of 2025 while hiking with friends in the Angeles National Forest in California and hasn't been seen since. Reza's research in materials science was funded by the Air Force Research Laboratory at Wright-Patterson Base in Ohio, which is long rumored to hold extraterrestrial debris tied to the famous 1947 Roswell crash. The Air Force Research Lab was headed up by retired Air Force General William McCaslin, who also has shockingly gone missing. McCaslin mysteriously vanished on February 27, 2026 from his Albuquerque, New Mexico home, along with a pair of hiking boots and a .38 caliber revolver. McCaslin was also the former research commander at Kirtland Air Force Base in New Mexico, which works closely on national security projects with Los Alamos National Laboratory, famous for developing nuclear weapons during the Manhattan Project. In June of 2025, 2 workers from Los Alamos, Anthony Chavez and Melissa Casillas, vanished from their homes in eerily similar circumstances. Chavez, age 79, was last seen leaving his New Mexico home on foot, leaving behind his car, wallet, phone, and keys. Casillas, age 54, was last seen on camera walking alone on a highway, also without her wallet, phone, or keys, after telling family members she would be working from home, Dateline reported. Other dead or missing scientists include Jason Thomas, who led the chemical biology team at Novartis and was found dead in a lake this past March. Famous MIT physicist Nuno Loureiro, who was shot and killed last December, and Stephen Garcia, who worked on security for a producer of non-nuclear components in American-made nukes and went missing in August of last year. As of now, no federal agency has publicly acknowledged any connection between the cases. President Trump announced that he had ordered an investigation on the matter and that they would likely have an answer over the next week.
Okay, I'm gonna have some fun with this. I'm not saying that this is a fun situation. Blah 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 blah. I shouldn't have to explain that. Blah blah blah. You get it. I'm having fun with this in the sense where let's theorize together. This is a politics theory. Folks, what is the actual cause behind this? I've theorized about what these people might have had information about, extra-dimensional aliens, national security breaches, all that junk. What could be the source of all these disappearances? Well, let's imagine an X-Men style group of 2 men come to you. You're sitting on your porch, let's say. You are an whatever researcher, much like the guy who worked on the Spitzer whatever telescope. These gentlemen, 2 gentlemen, Chinese-looking fellas, what are they doing here? One of them is not talking to you. One of them has his hands behind his back and he's wearing sunglasses. The other one is, they're both in black suits. The other one walks up to your steps and says, "We have an offer for you." And then he talks to you about what the Chinese government has to offer you, how they already confirmed that you don't own a Ring doorbell cam. So they have no issue presenting this to you. They find you in a place where they know that there's no eyes on you. That's why they wait for some of these people to go on walks or leave their work, all this sort of junk. Some of these people, they know that they don't have any security at their house, so they just show up there. So these Chinese people send you this offer. They're not send you. They tell it to you right to your face, and then you say are hesitant even about it. Well, then that doesn't work for them. They either A, kidnap you if they can manage to wrestle you, or if they are strong enough to. Otherwise, if they think that you are getting ready to fight back, or if they think that you might run inside for a gun or to defend yourself, any of that, they just shoot you dead right there out on your front step, in your front door, right in your foyer. Either option works for them. They walk away. It looks like a random killing with no sense of like, oh, who just randomly did this? Well, we have no sense. And then the Chinese people, by the way, get on a plane. I'm not saying this has to be China. It could be Russians. It could be the Saudis. It could be the Mossad. It's probably definitely more so the Mossad is what my bet would be. This could be any number of foreign intelligence agencies. This is definitely, I think it's a spree of murders and grabbings that I have. Listen, we're going to talk evidence based on this maybe later this week when we start to cover this a little more. But listen, in terms of what I think could be just a key motivator for killing the smartest minds of a country or kidnapping them and taking them to your country, that feels like a perfect motivator for what we're seeing here. This exact string of disappearances, murders, all of this junk. It's tragic, but it's exactly what you would expect to see in a foreign intelligence operation. I'm just saying, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just trying to have some fun. I'm trying to keep it light. Not really light. I'm trying to keep it honest. I'm trying to keep it on the real with y'all. Because that's exactly what I think is going on here. And if you think I'm crazy, if you think I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think is going on with all of the missing ladies and gents of the science world of America. But folks, let's begin the rapid fire section of today's headlines. A lot of stuff that you need to know about in order to keep your media diet healthy that I'm going to keep you informed of right now. Folks, Hollywood stars. They have penned a letter opposing the Paramount Warner Brothers deal. More than 1,000 Hollywood actors and actresses, directors, screenwriters have penned a letter opposing the $110 billion takeover of Warner Brothers Discovery Inc. by Paramount Skydance, citing concerns about job losses and higher costs with fewer rewards.
More than 1,000 Hollywood actors, directors, and screenwriters have penned a letter opposing the $110 billion takeover of Warner Brothers by Paramount, citing...
The moment Jane Fonda signs anything, it loses a little credibility in my mind. I'm sorry, she's not a revolutionary figure to me. She's not.
Concerns about job losses and higher costs with fewer choices for consumers.
This is a legal matter, and it seems like the Department of Justice is not going to aggressively fight this merger. Some state attorneys general, Europe may, but most people assume that will lead to kind of minor concessions, not to the deal getting blocked.
What does this have to do with children? Minor concessions? Why should the children have to give up anything?
The Hollywood industry is against this deal for the most part. There are exceptions to that, and I think they are hoping that if they apply enough public pressure and rally enough opposition, that it may, if if not completely derail the deal, impede it a little bit.
More than one.
Well, okay, listen, I don't know that this is gonna get in the way of Skydance, Paramount. They're businessmen, you know what I mean? Ever since, I think, the moment they rebooted Heathers, I think that's the moment where everybody collectively realized that they were not in the mood for doing anything for the sake of art. Especially with this streaming platform they were doing, they were not instituting a new era of creativity, as they famously worded it. They were doing cash grab era, which is perfectly fine. It's what most companies do. We expect it of them. Ladies and gentlemen, Mayor Mamdani has been interviewed recently. He's been commenting on Kamala Harris, Chuck Schumer, AOC, all of this junk. He's weighing in on the calls for all of these people, or anybody really, to take the lead for the generational change factor that people need in a future party. Listen, the Republican Party, the Democratic Party only continues to thrive on new blood. And how do we get that new blood? Zora Mamdani says not through rituals, at least not yet.
Former Vice President Kamala Harris said just last week she is thinking about running for president again. Would you like to see former Vice President Kamala Harris run for president again?
No.
To be honest, I haven't thought about the candidacies for president this time. My focus is 2026.
You're the only Democrat who hasn't thought about that.
And I'm proud to say that I am not and will never be running for president. And here in 2026, I want to be delivering for New Yorkers. And when it comes to the national level, I want to make sure that we win these midterms and actually have a vision that we're fighting for, not just one that we're fighting against.
Let me ask you about some New York politicians.
Okay.
Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer notably did not endorse you in the general election. And now there's a big discussion about generational leadership in your party, as you know. Do you think that Senator Schumer should step aside as leader of Senate Democrats?
Yes.
I have to be honest with you, this is another question that gets into the future, gets into 2028.
Well, this is a New Yorker, though. This is personal for you in some way, in terms of your politics here.
And I'll tell you that right now my focus is on working with everyone, and that includes Senator Schumer, it includes others as well.
So the rest of that interview, which I will put in the description, it proceeds to be a collective plea of, please stop asking me this. I haven't really thought about this question. He's very well trained in PR. Gavin Newsom is a lot of people's top pick. Let's discuss what The Economist has been recently saying about Gavin Newsom's fatter chances, honestly, than a lot of other people's at being the nominee.
Savior. He is Gavin Newsom.
Gavin
He
Newsom.
certainly looks the part. Get off your knees and stand up and fight for something. The governor of California has made himself the face of the anti-Trump resistance. And he's a favorite for the Democratic presidential nomination in 2028.
Unfortunately.
Where's the Democratic Party? Americans are waking up to a political shockwave overnight.
In 2024, the Democrats weren't just beaten, they were routed.
The Democrats' favorability among Americans is at its lowest point in the history of CNN's polling.
Newsom has a simple theory about what went wrong.
Democrats are constantly trying to be right. The other side is ruthless. My party needs to be more ruthless.
His answer is to get down in the mud with Trump. When Trump pushed Republicans to redraw Texas's electoral map in their favor, Newsom escalated. He got Californian voters to approve his own tit-for-tat gerrymandering plan, Proposition 50.
I'm fighting fire with fire, and I'm punching a bully back in the mouth.
Let's be really honest here. A lot of what Gavin Newsom's strategy amounts to is like he said, getting down in the mud with Trump. What does that really entail? It means getting down to their level rather than establishing your own level or establishing your own style. He is instead trading childlike blows tit for tat rather than going the adult route of schooling him in cooler ways, maybe through your policy, just creating a more well-developed state, pointing to your policy rather than pointing to your actual policy's effect rather than just, we're going to post a clip of me suplexing him on Twitter. Rather than any of that, I think that a lot of people would be more well-serviced if you made livable states and places like cities that people actually enjoyed walking around. I think that people would be way more supportive of the idea of you being a future politician if you endorsed ideas like livability, which he hasn't always shown that he is willing to support, except for when Chinese diplomats are taking visits to San Francisco, and then or any of the California in cities, in which case then he's clearly able to clean up the cities. Let's listen. Is he the nominee in 28? I'm going to say maybe, probably. That's probably my bet if I had to bet now. But who is the nominee for Apple's next CEO? They're discussing that behind the scenes. The Apple succession plan is emerging as the company is turning 50. And its gay CEO, Tim Cook, he's been having to look about the company and say, who's the meat? Who is the true, the heaviest gear at the core of this organization that I'm going to be able to keep turning this thing and making the innovative image that nobody thinks of when they think of Apple. So what is the likely nominee? Let's hear the docket of the list.
Apple's
as you
about
would.
To turn 50. And inside Cupertino, the biggest question isn't about the iPhone 18. It's about who's going to be the next CEO of the iPhone maker. Tim Cook is 65. At a recent all hands, when asked about leadership changes, he joked that some people retire at a certain age, emphasizing the word some. Behind the laughter, Cook made one thing clear. He's obsessed with who's in the room 5 years, 10 years, and 15 years from now. And all signs point to one name, John Turnus.
Turnus.
Apple's Senior VP of Hardware Engineering. He's responsible for the devices that make up 80% of the company's revenue. He helped bring AirPods to market, he developed the first 5G iPhones, he pushed for iPadOS, and he's been involved in the major Mac transition to Apple Silicon. Internally, he's known as an engineer's engineer. Meticulous, detail-obsessed, design-oriented, and a steady hand who's also collaborative, disciplined, and focuses on cost-cutting at a Tim Cook-like level. But there's also some weaknesses. Critics say he's conservative, not a bold visionary, and hasn't proven yet that he can develop a new class of products that will take Apple into an entirely new era. In a period defined by AI, Apple has struggled to innovate, relying more on outside partners. If Apple remains a hardware-first company, Turnus makes a lot of sense. But if the future is AI, software, and services, the case gets slightly murkier. Because whoever replaces Tim Cook won't just inherit Apple, they'll inherit the pressure to find the next big mega hit.
Folks, I played Apple Tycoon on Roblox a lot as a youngin', and if you don't know what the Tycoon games are, they're a series of games in which you create this little shop type of thing. It's mostly like a line factory or whatever, and I created iPhones, MacBooks, all that kind of junk on there, and then I'm gonna put my resume out there. I've played a lot of that when I was growing up, so maybe I could be the next CEO of Apple. One more headline, then we'll get into our final story, and then I will release you to whatever the Monday demands of you. I hope that you all have a wonderful, tremendous 420. I hope that you all have a wonderful and tremendous go of it, honestly, this week. This is, I hope, the propulsion to send you into orbits that you need for the week. Is private credit meltdown the next financial crisis? A lot of people are thinking so, as a lot of institutions are forcing to crack down.
Private credit has hit the headlines recently. A number of funds have seen a rush of clients trying to redeem their investments. One company, Blue Owl, has had to shut down one of its funds entirely. This is an asset class that's seen explosive growth, and which, as a consequence, is often touted as the source of the next financial crisis. So what's actually going on, and how worried should you be? If we start first, then, with what private credit actually is. Mike, you're our Wall Street editor. Explain it to us.
I think the broadest version of this is it's loans lent by firms that aren't banks, alternative asset managers often, and lending that's not done in the bond market. So anything that comes between those two things is fair game as the broadest definition of private credit. It's typically bought by a third group. So it will be bought by insurance companies, pension funds down the line. So the private markets firms are originating this debt. What you had late last year was a private credit fund issued by a company called Blue Owl. It's a big alternative asset management company. It's grown from about $50 billion under assets under management in 2021 to more like $300 billion today. So it's really, really aggressively expanded. It's a big player in private credit. This vehicle was seeing more redemptions than the fund wanted to satisfy, and it said, okay, no more redemptions. And earlier this year, assets from 3 funds of Blue Owl were sold. So they said, we're selling $1.4 billion worth of assets. We're going to redeem these investors. They're just going to be redeemed in chunks as we see fit. And they closed the fund down. This has sort of accelerated the feeling of panic. Even though these assets were sold for effectively face value, it's just crystallizing a moment of concern about what's really going on.
How does the size of the problem compare to the subprime meltdown and, say, the Lehman story?
Two key points to me. One is that these assets aren't perceived as safe, and they never have been. Everyone knows they're risky. Now, maybe they're riskier than people thought they were, but actually when it comes to the most severe financial crises, in my view, it's the assets people think are safe that are the problem, not the assets people think are risky. Nobody thinks that about private credit, right? And so the leverage ratios involved are nowhere near where they were. The other side of that is that you won't see this all come in one blow up. The opacity of it, the slow burning nature of it, means it may crop up for quite some time. So it may be that we're years down the line and you realize some of these insurance products are maybe not as well backed as you would have liked them to be. You can see the economic impact, I think, trickle out for quite a bit further. It won't be a one-moment explosion like the collapse of Lehman Brothers.
At least it's not going to be a moment like when your parents might have lost their house because your dad was a janitor and your mom was at home raising you guys. Like I said, maybe the lending to certain households that couldn't keep a roof over their own heads beforehand, rent-wise even, maybe lending to those people enough money to buy a 100,000 square foot home, that wasn't a great plan. Let's cover our final story. I will release you to whatever the Monday demands of you. 8 children dead. Listen, this isn't a fun one to end on, but it's one out of Louisiana. And listen, whenever a tragedy rings out of Louisiana, I need to cover it. And I need everybody else to be in a deep state of mourning. Listen, folks, after a horrific domestic rampage left 8 children dead in what seems to be described as the nation's deadliest mass shooting in over 2 years, early Sunday morning, 31-year-old Shamar Elkins allegedly opened fire at 2 separate residences during a violent domestic dispute. Among the victims were 7 of Elkins' own children, Jesus Christ, and one of their cousins ranging in age from just 3 to 11 years old. God. 2 women, the mothers of the children, remain in critical condition, while a 9th child managed to escape the slaughter by jumping from a roof. Smart kid, honestly. Very, ingenuitive child. The violent report stems from a bitter separation between Elkins and his wife, Shaniqua Pugh, god damn it, who were scheduled to appear in court today for a hearing. Family members told the investigators that Elkins had been struggling with dark thoughts and severe stress following the split. The shooting began around 5 a.m. when Elkins reportedly shot his wife before moving to a second location where his children were targeted. Standoff ended later that morning when police pursued Elkins into a stolen vehicle. He was killed during the final exchange of gunfire with officers in neighboring Bossier Parish, Shreveport. God, this is tough. Police Chief Wayne Smith expressed the community's collective shock, stating that he cannot begin to imagine how this event could have occurred. The neighbors described a scene as a nightmare, recalling how some children were playing in the yard just before. While Elkins had prior firearms convictions from 2019, there were no red flags of domestic violence on his record. As the city is preparing for the long road of grieving, local leaders are calling for renewed focus on domestic prevention and mental health support to prevent such another family annihilation from happening again. Folks, family annihilations are, unfortunately, and I'm saying this as someone who's been looking I've listened to some of the crime things and the people, the experts, they kind of peaked around the time of the pandemic, but they still happen at an alarming rate at ones that I don't think we've seen in decades prior when it comes to, it started to I think it had another explosionary period right around the 1970s, I believe it was, but don't quote me on that. It's an unfortunate part of our society. It's an unfortunate part of our world that we have to live with. It's mostly men. They look at the family unit as something that is pure. It is a Chris Benoit moment, as I like to refer to it, where it is something so pure the only thing worth cleaning it with is the blood that pumps through the members of it. And it's a terrifying state of mind, because it's one that's normally brought on by mental illness, drugs, repeated injuries to the head. But in this case, it appears to be just the fact that this guy was angry and appeared to have the head of an alien. If you don't believe me, you can see this kind of just broad forehead he had in the description here.
8 children were killed in Louisiana over the weekend. And officials say the gunman was father to 7 of them.
God, he looks wrong.
Police
Alien.
say Shamar Elkins shot his 7 children and one of their cousins inside his home on Sunday.
He looks like an alien.
Investigators say the shootings were carried out execution style, but some of the children tried to make a run for it.
So actually, this house right here that you see behind us, there's a window right above the garage. They actually climbed out of that window, we believe. And unfortunately, one of the children was actually located deceased on the roof.
Jeez.
So we are working to determine, we do believe that he shot the child while the child was on the roof trying to get away.
2 children reportedly did make it out of the house.
Thank
One
God.
of them ran to a neighbor to call 911. Cops say Elkins also shot 2 women who were reportedly the mothers of his children. Police say they later shot and killed Elkins after he carjacked a vehicle and tried to escape. The investigation is ongoing as a community mourns a devastating loss.
He has brought everybody together, dear Lord.
This is a developing story. For Inside Edition Digital, I'm Mara Montalbano.
Thank you, Mara. Folks, sad, right? This is, I mean, I don't know where else to go from here. This is just a tragic one to end on. But, you know, if it's news, it's news. And if it's news, it's on this show. Folks, I had a wonderful time putting these stories together for you. I hope you had an even better time listening to them. I loved this. We're back at it again. We enjoyed it. We did the 420 episode. I hope you have a wonderful 420. I hope you have a wonderful start to your week. We'll be back at it again for the rest of the episodes of the week, you know, Tuesday through Friday, as we do. Subscribe if you want more, like if you liked it. But in the meantime, join us for tomorrow's broadcast. I have been Ollie Vogt Larson with your Brain on Air. Thank you so very much for listening, and bye-bye.